Hello and welcome to cEDH Portuguesely. Today we bring you a gameplay from the 4th round of our last tournament quest for the Cradle. Before we start, a shout out to our patrons for helping us bring you more content and better tournaments. If you enjoy our content or want to help us grow even more, you can do so by becoming our patron, clicking on the link in the description below and leaving a like and subscribe. Now to the game. Adriel is playing Ishai Jeska, an adaptive deck that takes advantage of intuition lines to assemble its main win con, or if the game gets too grindy, can also switch to a more aggro strategy using Ishai to kill its opponents. Late and Gonçalo are both playing Tasigur the Golden Fang, a control deck that seeks to slow down its opponents with a lot of interaction pieces until it's safe enough to finally land a win con at the table. Agostinho is playing Nymris Unas Trickster, a control deck filled with a lot of interaction pieces, which combined with its commander's ability allows him to filter through the deck to find a win con. Adriel mulliganed once and kept an opening hand with a Polluted Delta, a Fellwar Stone and an Arcane Signet for early ramp, an Esper Sentinel for some card advantage, a Grand Abolisher, a Chain of Vapor as interaction, and a Twin Flame. Late also mulliganed once and kept a starting hand with another Growth Stadium, a Mana Vault for ramp, a Swan Song and an Opposition Agent for interaction, a Neophorum to find out some combo piece, a Reanimate and a Sylvan Library. Gonçalo kept his first hand with a Reflecting Pool and a Rejuvenating Springs for lands, an Abrupt Decay, a Cyclonic Rift and a Force of Will for interaction, a Talisman of Dominance for ramp, and a Demonic Tutor. Agostinho also kept his first hand with a Mystic Sanctuary and a Gemstone Caverns for lands, a Windfall, a Stern Dismissal and a Cyclonic Rift for interaction, a Consider to filter through his deck, and a Yawgmoth's Will. Adriel won the die roll and is starting first. Let the 4th round begin. Before Adriel begins the game off, Agostinho has a pre-game action and plays the Gemstone Caverns, exiling a Stern Dismissal. Adriel starts his turn. He draws. On his main phase he plays a Polluted Delta. He takes 1 damage to fetch for a Tundra and follows it with an Esper Sentinel. Agostinho responds with a Consider, discarding a Mystical Tutor and drawing. He allows the Sentinel to enter the battlefield and Adriel passes. After drawing, Late plays an Undergrowth Stadium followed by a Mana Vault and also passes. Gonçalo on his turn simply plays a Rejuvenating Springs and chips the turn. Agostinho draws. He plays a Mystic Sanctuary tapped and also passes. Adriel moves to his turn. On his main phase he plays a Spectator Seating. He follows it with a bold turn to Grand Abolisher. No one responds, and Adriel then moves to combat, sending the Esper Sentinel at Agostinho for 1 damage. He takes it and Adriel moves the turn to Late. He draws. He plays an island and passes. Gonçalo on his turn plays a Reflecting Pool and follows it with a Talisman of Dominance, not paying for the Sentinel before passing. Agostinho moves to his turn. He draws and also plays an island and chips the turn. On his hand step, Late plays an Opposition Agent just for precaution, since he can't play anything on Adriel's turn. Adriel draws. He plays an island and decides to ramp this turn playing a Fellwar Stone. He follows it with an Arcane Signet and moves to combat, sending the Sentinel at Gonçalo for 1 damage and the Grand Abolisher at Late for 2 damage. They both take the damage and Adriel passes. On Late's upkeep he takes 1 damage from the Mana Vault. On his main phase he plays a Sylvan Library, not paying for the Sentinel. He moves to combat, sending the Opposition Agent at Gonçalo for 3 damage before passing. Gonçalo moves to his turn. He takes some time and decides to pass, having mana open just in case. On his end step, Agostinho plays a Cyclonic Rift, paying for the Sentinel, targeting the Grand Abolisher and goes to his turn. He draws. On his main phase, Agostinho plays a Windfall, again not paying for the Sentinel. Adriel immediately tries to respond with a Chain of Vapor on Opposition Agent, but Gonçalo responds with a Force of Will on the Windfall, losing 1 life and paying for the Sentinel. The Windfall is countered and the Opposition Agent goes back to Late's hand. He decides not to copy the Chain of Vapor and Agostinho passes. Adriel moves to his turn. He plays a Bloodstained Mire, taking 1 damage to fetch for a Volcanic Island. He plays a Gitaxian Probe, paying 2 life, targeting Gonçalo. It resolves, and after some consideration he decides to play Ishai. It resolves and he still plays the Grand Abolisher before moving to combat. He sends the Sentinel at Gonçalo for 1 damage and passes the turn. At the beginning of Late's upkeep he takes again 1 damage from the Mana Vault's trigger. On his draw step the Sylvan triggers. He decides to keep only 1 card from the top 3 and moves to his main phase. He plays an Underground Sea and passes, leaving mana open in case some interaction is needed. Gonçalo moves to his turn. On his main phase he takes 1 damage to play a Demonic Tutor, triggering Ishai and not paying for the Sentinel. Late immediately responds with the Opposition Agent, also triggering Ishai. He looks at Gonçalo's hand and fetches for a Gilded Drake. With that, Gonçalo passes. Agostinho on his turn plays another island. He follows it with a Talisman of Dominance, triggering Ishai, paying for the Sentinel. He decides to ship the turn and leave mana open just in case. Adriel draws. On his main phase he plays a Plateau. After some consideration he decides to play 2nd Commander Jeska, Thrice Reborn. he activates it right away, dealing 2 damage at the opposition agent, Late, and Gonçalo. Afterwards, he plays a gamble, fetching for a card, discarding a Fierce Guardianship. Adriel moves to combat, sending the Esper Sentinel at Agostinho for 1 damage, his commander and the Grand Abolisher at Late for 6 damage. Everyone takes the damage and Adriel passes. Late moves to his turn. On his upkeep, he takes yet again 1 damage from the Mana Vault. On his draw step, he takes 4 damage from the Sylvan Library to keep 1 extra card in his hand. He plays an Ancient Tome, and follows it by playing the Gilded Drake he exiled earlier, taking 2 damage, and triggering Ishai. No one responds, and he switches the Drake with Ishai. Afterwards, he plays a Reanimate to attempt to bring back the opposition agent, but Adriel responds with the Intuition, triggering Ishai. Late responds with a Swan Song, countering this way the Intuition, allowing him to bring back the opposition agent to the battlefield. After this good turn, Late passes. Gonçalo draws. He takes a moment to decide on what to do next, but since he's short on mana right now, he passes. Agostinho, on his turn, simply plays a snow-covered swamp. On his end step, Gonçalo plays an Abrupt Decay on the Grand Abolisher, just in case Adriel tries to go off next turn, not paying for the Sentinel, and triggering Ishai. With that, Adriel moves to his turn. He draws. He takes a moment to decide on what to do next, but ends up moving straight to combat, sending the Gilded Drake at Late for 3 damage and Esper Sentinel at Gonçalo for 1 damage. They both take the damage, and on his second main phase, Adriel plays once again Jeska, this time activating it right away, not to deal damage but to give Ishai triple damage to one of his opponents. He still plays a Serra Ascendant before passing. Late, on his upkeep, takes 1 damage from the Mana Vault. On his draw step, he decides not to keep any extra card on his hand. He plays the Windswept Teeth, cracking it right away to fetch for a tropical island. He follows it with his commander Tasigur and ships a turn. Gonçalo moves to his turn, hoping to find a land on the top, but no luck. Since he doesn't have much more to do, he passes. On his end step, Agostinho plays his commander Nymris and moves to his turn. He draws. He plays a Teferi Master of Time, not paying for the Sentinel and triggering Ishai. Teferi resolves and Agostinho activates his first ability right away and also passes. Adriel moves to his turn. He plays a Steam Vents and tap, taking 2 damage. He follows it with a Malevolent Hermit, triggering Ishai. It takes some time to make some threat assessment. He decides either way to play Rhystic Study, triggering Ishai yet again. He plays a Swords to Plowshares on Nymris, triggering Ishai. Agostinho feels reluctant to feed the Sentinel and the Rhystic, but still, he decides to play a Pact of Negation, triggering Nymris, paying for the Esper and the Rhystic, and also triggering Ishai. Adriel responds sacrificing Malevolent Hermit, countering this way the Pact of Negation and successfully exiling Nymris. He moves to combat, sending the Gilded Drake, Serra Ascendant and the token at Teferi. Agostinho responds activating Teferi's first ability before putting it into the graveyard. Adriel afterwards activates once again Jeska, targeting Ishai once more before passing. Late, on his upkeep, takes 1 damage again from the Mana Vault and decides not to draw any extra cards from the Sylvan Library. He moves straight to combat, sending Ishai at Gonçalo for 36 damage. But Gonçalo was prepared and plays a Chain of Vapor on Ishai, paying for both the Sentinel and the Rhystic. Afterwards, he passes. Gonçalo goes to his turn, but once again he fails to find a land on the top and ships the turn. Agostinho draws. On his main phase, he plays a Drowned Catacomb and also passes. Adriel moves to his turn. He plays Ishai. He activates Jeska's first ability, targeting Serra Ascendant, and moves to combat, sending the Serra Ascendant at Agostinho, Esper Sentinel at Gonçalo, Gilded Drake and the token at Late. After damage resolution, Agostinho ended up taking 18 damage, Gonçalo took 1 damage, Late took 5 damage and Adriel won 18 life. On his second main phase, Adriel plays a Chrome Mox, pitching a Final Fortune, and still plays a Benevolent Geist before passing. On his end step, Late activates Tasigur, discarding a Seedborn Muse and a Vampiric Tutor. Adriel puts the Seedborn Muse on his hand and Late goes to his turn. On his upkeep, Late takes 1 damage from the Mana Vault, and on his draw step he doesn't take any damage from the Sylvan Library. He decides to try to control the board, playing a Neoform, sacrificing Tasigur, paying for both the Rhystic and the Sentinel, to fetch for a Toxrill. He passes, and on his end step Adriel plays a Cyclonic Rift on Toxrill, but Late immediately responds with a Veil of Summer, not paying for the Rhystic. Adriel plays a Force of Will, pitching a Mystical Tutor. Agostinho in response plays an Arset's Reversal, targeting the Cyclonic Rift. It resolved, so Agostinho bounces the Serra Ascendant back to Adriel's hands, and Late finally passes. At the beginning of Gonçalo's upkeep, Toxrill triggers, and every creature of Late's opponents gets a slime counter, and Late creates a token. Gonçalo draws. He plays his commander Tasigur, and chips a turn. At the beginning of Agostinho's turn, Toxrill triggers once again, and all of his opponent's creatures get another slime counter. Late also creates 2 more tokens, Extinct draws, and decides to pass saving mana just in case. At the beginning of Adriel's upkeep, Toxriel triggers once more, and Late creates another token. Adriel draws, and on his main phase he activates Jeska's first ability targeting Ishai, and moves straight to combat, sending his commander at Late, killing him this way. On his second main phase he plays a Serra Ascendant once again. He follows it with a Cyclonic Rift Overloaded, to which Gonçalo immediately responds with a Fierce Guardianship, countering it this way. Adriel then passes. On his end step, Agostinho still plays his commander again, not paying for the Ristic. Gonçalo moves to his turn. On his main phase he plays an Overgrown Tomb, untapped, taking 2 damage. He proceeds to play a Bloom Tender and ships the turn to Agostinho. He draws. On his main phase he plays a Yawgmoth's Will, not paying for the Ristic, and regrets immediately because Adriel draws a delay to counter it. Since the time is up, Agostinho ends his turn, ending a match in a draw. Unfortunately this match also ended in a tie. But even though we were able to watch a good performance from our players, write down in the comments your thoughts about this match. Now that the 4th round has ended, we finally have the best 16 players of the tournament. Next week we'll have the semi-final, featuring Miguel playing Trásios Teves, Henrique playing Anje Falconwrath, Samuel playing Timna Trásios, and Milomes playing Timna Crown, so don't miss out. As always, if you like our content and would like to see more, don't forget to like, share and subscribe. You can always become a patron for early access to our videos and other rewards. Thank you very much, see you in the next one. We would like to thank the SplitSecond for the partnership, the Monarch team for providing us with the Squire bot to help us run our tournaments, and Arena Vir for providing us the place.